In our LR4 that we traded in for this vehicle, I had no problem making that turn when we moved here because I knew the turning radius of the LR4 or the Discovery is absolutely outstanding. I had a better turning radius than my wife's sedan, but I mean, she drove a Fusion, and that thing was kind of a mid-sized boat. But she's traded that in too, so her new vehicle has a better turning radius. When we got the Defender, one of the first things that I noticed was that the turning radius was not as good as the LR4. I may be mistaken on that. I'll have to look up the numbers, but just feel-wise, it felt like the Defender had a little bit wider turning radius than the LR4. The cameras on the outside of this, now this is not exclusive to Land Rover. When we were test driving other vehicles like the BMW X7, they also had this virtual camera system on the outside where you can actually see your vehicle from a bird's eye view or a elevated view. Without those cameras, without that camera system on here, I don't know how long it would have been before I attempted this turnabout in my driveway. And one of the great things about the way the camera system works is it puts these little outlines of obstacles. So even if you had a hard time telling what you were actually seeing in the camera, it's using its sensors to determine hard surfaces or obstacles that your vehicle is getting too close to, which made that turn a breeze. Now, granted, this is just my driveway, so I mean this is not a major off-road obstacle. But the last thing I want to do is run my front bumper into my retaining wall because I don't want to drive all the way down my driveway just to turn my vehicle around. A big scratch is a big scratch, regardless of where you got it. That's not the only feature that I didn't know I was getting with this vehicle. We didn't actually end up test driving this vehicle before we bought it. We ordered this direct from the factory. We test drove the 2020 Defender and decided we liked it, so we were looking for a 2021 Defender. And one of the big things that we needed was a third row seat. Not all the Defenders have a third row of seating, so we were limited to the options that were available out there. Taking the already limited inventory of the Defenders, maybe 20% of them had third row seats, and then they didn't have the color we wanted, they didn't have the wheels that we wanted. We would find vehicles that we wanted and would say, okay, we'll go ahead and take that. So the dealer would try to see if they could get it in a dealer trade or from another dealership. And we did that about 3 or 4 times, and each time that vehicle was either sold or the other dealership just wasn't willing to trade it. We didn't know the backstory behind it, but either way, our dealer told us they could not get that vehicle. So eventually, after a couple months of this, our dealer had acquired an open build with a trade with another dealership, and the general manager offered that to us in order to get the vehicle that we wanted. So we selected all the options that we wanted on this vehicle to suit our needs. There were things that we were getting that I didn't know we were getting because they just came standard, I suppose. So again, we only chose the options that we wanted. So these are some of the options that I was happily surprised with. One of the things we got was auto brake hold, which keeps your brake engaged when you come to a complete stop until you press the accelerator, which is useful for sitting in traffic. Actually, that's pretty much the only place that I think it would be useful is when you're sitting in traffic, which I think is a great feature. However, I don't sit in traffic very much. So we come into vehicle and convenience. We have vehicle access, and we have automatic access height. Now, we've had access height in the LR4 for a long time, and but I would never really drop it down to access height because, well, it was just an extra step that I never really wanted to take. I probably played with it a few times when we first got the vehicle, but then I just stopped doing it. This is a nice feature, and because we have kids and my wife is shorter than I am, so just having it drop down automatically when we park the vehicle is nice, and then I don't have to think about it. After vehicle access height, we have wipers, and they have the winter wiper park. If you don't live in a place that snows or freezes, you probably are not aware of why you would need to do that. But you can get ice built up underneath and on top of your wipers. You can't really chip that away with an ice scraper without damaging your wipers. So you just have to wait for that to melt. That will be nice if I ever have to park my vehicle outside during a snowstorm or an ice storm. Because generally overnight I won't be parking my vehicle outside, certainly not in the winter. Another item that I didn't realize I was getting with this is this is not our first vehicle with voice activation, but voice activation in the past, at least in our experience, where it just doesn't work very well. Voice activation has gotten a lot better. We've gotten used to how responsive like Google Home is, for example. But what this one has is it allows you to record your own wake word, which we have, which I'm not going to say right now because my kids will watch this video and I don't want them to know the wake word just yet, so that they're not playing with it all the time.
I didn't understand that.
One of the things that you can change is the load setting for the tire pressure monitoring system. And you have light load and you have normal load. And now I switched this over to normal load, but looking at the owner's manual, there's two distinctions in your vehicle: up to 5 seats or 6 seats and above. And we do have 6 seats and above, so I figured maybe normal load. But if it's up to 4 occupants, which we typically are, it's just me, my wife, and our daughters, we're under a light load. So I should change that to light load, which is how the vehicle was delivered to us. Now, as soon as we hit 5 occupants or more, then we need to switch that over to normal load. I mean, it's not going to change how the vehicle handles it. It changes the tire pressure advised numbers. Your actual tire pressures, they're going to be the same as far as what it's measuring, but it's going to affect what your target pressures are. As you can see, those are a little off. So it hasn't given me a warning, so I'm going to assume those are okay. So our initial setup is pretty much complete, and it was kind of fun finding some of the stuff that I didn't realize was on this vehicle. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get to take this out and see what it can do while it's still under warranty.